explicit violence in your writings?
It's what I do, is one answer. I write horror fiction. There is a kind of curiosity that we have as human beings about our life processes. One of our last life processes is death. It's a legitimate subject for curiosity. We shouldn't be ashamed that the macabre or the morbid exercises some fascination upon us. I tell it like it is. If it's there in my mind's eye, I put it on the page. And that seems to me to be a legitimate way to write.
Hi everyone, welcome to Written in Red, the horror reader and writers podcast. I am one of your hosts, Daniel J. Volpe, author of books like Billy Silver, Awakened in Blood, Talia, and my newest book from D&T Publishing, A Gift of Death. I am joined by my three other hosts, first of that being Aaron Beauregard.
Hey guys, Aaron Beauregard, Splatterpunk Award-nominated author for The Slob, and author of such books as Tried New Candy, Pizza Face, Wedding Day Massacre.
And we have Carver Pike.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Carver Pike here, Splatterpunk Award-nominated author of Slaughterbox, and I've also written Scalp, Grad Night, Diablo Snuff series, and a handful of others.
And the man himself, Roland Bursey Jr.
Hey, everybody. Roland Bursey Jr., author of Payback as a Witch, Pre-Thanksgiving Stress Disorder, and Abortion, which is a winner of the 2020 International Book Awards, 2019 International Book Awards, and 2020 American Fiction Awards finalists.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are your four hosts of Fucked Up Horror Authors, and we're here to bring you another fucked up show. Tonight's topics, we're going to talk about some branding things, some etiquette things when dealing with your work, and how to approach some, I'm not going to say hot topics, but something that we think is important for aspiring authors to know, and some pitfalls we found along the way. But before we get into that topic, Aaron is going to give us our author spotlight of the episode. So Aaron, take it away, good sir.
All right, guys. Well, I want to say the author that we're spotlighting here, he started writing when he was young. His name is William Becker, and similar to what I did with Brian G. Berry, I reached out to William and I asked him to send me some points about himself, maybe just to sort of get us acquainted in the Written in Red audience, acquainted with some of his inspirations, learn a little bit about him and what work he has available, and of course how you could check that work out, which we always recommend here on the Written in Red podcast, because most of the people that we spotlight, can always use an extra reader or two. So, and that's the whole point of this, to kind of build a little bit of exposure. So what William wrote is, he said, "My name's William Becker. I'm 20 years old. I published my first book a month after I turned 15, which That's pretty impressive.
Very impressive.
And it actually really ties into what we're talking about on this episode, Etiquette and Desire, right? Clearly, William has the desire to write if you're 15 years old and you've gone ahead and took it upon yourself to publish a book. So that should be an indicator, no matter where you are in life, if a 15-year-old kid can fucking figure it out, so can you.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. I was beaten off too much at 15 to write a book, so good on you, mate.
I think I'm beating off too much at 35 to write a book.
Here we go. Y'all didn't even wait till we got halfway into the episode.
right, literally the first sentence,
Before we talked about cum or dicks or anything?
Yeah.
You guys are gross.
And so William goes on to say, my second book came out when I was 18. He was born in St. Petersburg, Russia, and then he was adopted by a family originally from Erie, Pennsylvania. They moved to Boone and lived where he lived most of his childhood, and then he decided to enroll in film school at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, where he says he just became an Adobe certified associate in Premiere. So now he talks a little bit here about inspiration. So he says, I guess I was inspired from a variety of sources. When I was 7 or 8, I remember checking out most of the Goosebumps books that I could find from the library. Almost everyone. Yeah, and it's funny. We always go back to the Goosebumps, right? I feel like we all talk about it. It seems to be a staple in most people's that write horror, it feels like. I would read them over and over again. From then, I moved on to more epic adventures, such as the Pendragon series and the Bone graphic novels. And maybe when I was 11 or 12, I got really into writing poetry, which was a good outlet for intense emotions that I was feeling as a middle schooler. I had the hugest crush on a girl, and she didn't like me back. She started dating some kid from a horrible family, so I was pretty nasty and pressured her. And he said he was pretty nasty and pressured her into a lot of nasty stuff like drugs, self-harm, and sex. So my poetry became a pretty deep emotional outlet for that. Not long after, I discovered The Wonders of Silent Hill, which often is described as the horror representative of the deep emotional trauma. The games, not the movies, to be clear. Each is kind of reflective of the protagonist, with monsters serving as reflections of the protagonist's inner turmoil. I was very attached to the idea of having horror sort of serve as a character study, and the older I got, the more comfortable I got with using it. Not long after, I discovered the works of David Lynch, who is responsible for Twin Peaks and Eraserhead and the likes. He's very much about ditching the narrative in favor of art for art's sake, with tons of meaning hidden beneath a lot of interpretation left to the viewer. Something that I immediately fell in love with and harnessed, especially with my second novel, Gray Skies, and most of my short stories on my website. And his website is williambeckerauthor.net. And he's got a lot of free stuff up there. I've read a few of his stories that he's sent me. And I'll talk about those a little as we move further in. But, he has free stuff up. So, anyone who's listening and looking for something and maybe doesn't have enough money to spend, check out williambeckerauthor.net for some freebies. And the stuff's good. Like, I'll tell you guys a little bit about what I thought of the ones I read in a moment. But he said, in high school and middle school, writing was the center of my universe. Whenever anything happened, I went straight to writing. It became very hard for me to just write about a cool idea. Usually writing was backed by something huge and emotional. Not always dark, mind you. A lot of people describe my writing as dark, and I say that isn't true. There are dark elements, but I like to play with everything from every extreme human emotion. I like to play with disgust, sexuality, peace, romance, and paternal instinct. I don't limit myself to any one genre, even though I am technically considered a horror writer. I think that good writers often transcend the concept and genre entirely. I wrote 4 full-length novels, my first, Gray Skies, and 2 more that I can't talk about yet. The problem with being young and experimental is that it was very hard to be both when you want to be traditionally published. I spent a long time trying to get my first novel published, but I more or less gave up when all I got were rejections. I definitely wasn't super talented at the time either. Not to imply I am, but I was a super emotional 14, 15-year-old, so there wasn't a good reason for anyone to accept me. And so this is another good thing, right, that we've talked about on the podcast, right? So he was really going all in on this at a young age, really pushing, getting rejections at that age, and he didn't let that deter him, right? And that's sort of something that we've touched on the podcast, is that, you may write your first book, right? And nobody gives a shit. I wrote 4 books. Nobody really read them. But I wasn't doing the right things to get people to read them initially. So sort of the same for William. But, I think what do you guys think? I think that's like a good sort of lesson too, right? That if your first book doesn't explode, you shouldn't expect it to be like some smash hit, because you have to establish many other avenues and your presence before people are really going to get interest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Takes a lot of work, and a lot of times, especially now, publishers won't even look at you if you're not putting in the work. So
Yeah, for 14-year-old kids to take those rejections and just to kind of not brush them off, but to keep pushing through is admirable. We've seen, there are adults that are able to push through that, and they fear the rejection, and when they do get a rejection, it kind of makes them shut down. So it sounds like he's definitely, on the right path.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, absolutely. And let me continue on a little more here. So he says, kind of wrapping up here, we've only got a couple more things, but he says, this also meant that any and all promotion was up to me, which was difficult with how shy and anxious I was in high school. I turned to Wattpad for a few years and ended up getting featured there with a story called New York Onions, which in itself was inspired by witnessing my cousin having a seizure that was induced by brain damage caused by overdosing on drugs earlier in his life. I remember booking local festivals and getting a few friends to come with me and to sell copies. So again, this point that he makes, right, and we all talk about this, putting a piece of yourself into the story and your experiences. I read that story. It's an excellent story. I believe he still has it free on his website, williambeckerauthor.net, and built off of real life trauma. And those are the best stories, the ones that you put your soul into, right?
People connect with those kind of stories. I mean, you're sharing yourself, a little bit of yourself with your readers, and how much more special can you get? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I'm not a huge David Lynch guy, but I can see what he's saying about how some of his work is inspired by sort of Lynch's vision and that sort of bizarro. His stuff was open to interpretation, but not to that point of Lynch where it's like just so easy to get lost in it. Like you could watch Mulholland Drive and be like, I have no fucking clue what I just spent 2 hours watching. That's not the case with his stories. Like you should be able to sort of grasp it, but there's enough playroom for interpretation and your own feelings and stuff. So I strongly recommend that story.
Aaron, that story is still free, New York Onions. I'm on his website right now. You have to download it as a PDF, but it's still free.
What else does he got on there? Oh, the egg. I read that too. That's a fucking real weird one. That one's fucking bizarre. Think about just waking up and there's like a fucking egg near your genitalia area, a giant egg.
Oh, wow.
It's just a real weird fucking story.
Check that out.
There's another one called For We Are Many that he did. That might have been his most recent one, actually.
That's the first one on his website right here.
Yeah, that's the most recent one he put out, I believe. That one is fucking dark, and I don't recommend that if you're having any kind of suicidal thoughts to read that story. But if you're in a good state of mind and like really realistic horror, then I love the story personally. But I'm just a warning to anyone in a bad state of mind. I don't recommend that for you, but if you're on the up and up, definitely check it out because particularly I thought some of his work with the dialogue in the story was very impressive, very realistic. It was probably maybe some of it was pulled from his life. You know what I mean? Like that's the way it sounded, So.
Yeah, he actually has on his website with that story. It's pretty cool what he does for his work. He gives like a rating. So the New York Onions is rated PG-13. For We Are Many is rated mature, and he even has his trigger warnings in the bottom, and it says descriptions of suicide, self-harm, sexual content, and infidelity. So he kind of does give you touch on all the bases there of what you're in for. So like you said, Aaron, it seems like it's a deep story, but if you're there and you can handle it, then it sounds like it's a good one.
Yeah, agreed. And he says here, I had kind of wrapping up, I had a big anger issue when I was growing up, which was caused by a lot of things. I remember getting told a lot that if I kept being so angry, I was going to end up hurting someone I cared about. Gray Skies, my second novel, which you can buy hard copies of through Barnes & Noble, was inspired by fears of being abusive through my angry outbursts. I was paralyzed by fear. What if I punched my future partner or child or one of my family members? That's kind of like the idea, that he's like, if I let this anger take control of me, I become someone that I'm not, and that fear is sort of played out in Gray Skies. So I would recommend checking out the stuff on the website. If you like it, maybe check out New York Onions or check out For We Are Many. And if you like it, then go ahead and buy Gray Skies. And if you like it, the ratings are always appreciated. And even his short stories, you can review and rate them on Goodreads. So they're all there still. So that would really help him out, and I'm sure he would appreciate it. And lastly, he says he likes to be pretty active on Instagram, and occasionally I put stories out for free on my website, which we've discussed. During COVID, when everybody, myself included, was poor, I put 3 out for free on there. I thought I'd take a year of just writing and releasing stuff for free. So that's an interesting concept too, and something I talked to him about on a couple of occasions where he was like, yeah, the model that I'm going by is sort of pure exposure. It's almost like, he's just trying to get as much exposure as he can before he lays out. And because he's so young, it sort of makes sense. You know what I mean? Maybe give some stuff away when you're on the younger side, and then when you drop that, you've got an audience when you drop that masterpiece, right?
That's kind of the whole concept and he said he did have some stuff on Wattpad too, right? Because that's kind of what people are going for on Wattpad usually too, and a lot of authors have come out of that with big hits. So
yeah, I just checked him out on Instagram. He has a Facebook page, but I don't know how active he is on it. But I just shot him a request on Facebook and Instagram, and I was checking out some of his stuff online. It's pretty cool. Does he have Twitter? As much as I hate Twitter.
I don't think he has. If he does, I haven't seen him on there. But again, I'm not on there that much either.
Yeah, it's kind of shitty.
But really, when we're and that's William Becker, right? That's pretty much everything on him. But again, so that's his website. Let me remind you guys, is williambeckerauthor.net. Please check it out. We'll post it up in the podcast discussion group on Facebook. Please share it if you can, because this is someone who's giving a lot away for free. A legitimately good person, that's trying to like live out his passions, like a lot of people that are listening to the podcast. And it's actually the perfect segue really into our main topic for today, which is etiquette and desire. Now, I thought that we sort of positioned this part here because initially we were going to be getting into the diving into a pool of blood, which is like the soup and nuts of when you're actually starting to get writing. And that's going to be in the 2 coming weeks. We have 2 parts the 2 coming episodes after this. We have 2 parts that are going to be...
I'm sorry, I've just never heard anybody use soup and nuts together. Like, nuts and bolts I've heard, and the meat and potatoes, but the soup and nuts?
Yeah, right. I like to put my balls in Campbell's.
However you like your nuts, Aaron.
You never rested your nuts in a nice warm bowl of pea soup?
No, I rested in a nice warm bowl of pea.
We need to hear this story.
Yeah.
Pictures or it didn't happen.
Read Roland's next book.
Yeah.
Right.
Peanuts.
But this serves as a great segue into today's episode, Etiquette and Desire, because it's mostly about urine. No, I'm just kidding. Because I think like my relationship with William Becker is sort of a great example of an organic relationship occurring, right? An organic respect and partnership, sort of when when you encounter people, it's not. It's like, I think I put up one of my books or something, and he was like, "Oh, this looks really cool. Like, I definitely want to check this out. Like, but I'm hoping to get some money soon or whatever." And I was like, "You know what, dude? I'll send you a copy." And at this time, I was sort of trying to do some different promotions and stuff like that, and that's why I decided to send it to him. And then from there, it just goes sort of like, oh, he writes too. Let me check out your work, and just sort of a natural progression into being peers and stuff like that.
That's what the porridge and penis is all about.
You just couldn't fucking help yourself, huh?
I gotta take the headphones off. I can't even listen to this.
Oh man.
But really,
sorry for my outburst.
No, that's wonderful. That's what makes us the Written and Read podcast.
Yeah.
But really, what we want to talk about today is just take some time to talk about proper etiquette. Like, how do you, like that relationship, for example, right? How do you build a relationship with other authors to be considered peers amongst each other the right way? Because there's the proper way to do it, and then there can be other like bad habits that may be formed otherwise, right? And so we're going to kind of shine a spotlight on that, just so kind of everybody gets a decent idea of approachability. It also ties into marketing too, right? Like sort of being able to sell your book in a way that doesn't seem so pushed upon people, right? Yeah. Because that could be a huge turnoff, and that's why for like my spotlights that I've done so far, that I chose Brian G. Barry and William Becker. Like Brian Barry, for example, he never even told me he wrote books. You know what I mean? That's how focused that dude was, and just like encapsulated in promoting horror in general. And he was just like, I really like this stuff. And then I kind of said, shit, I saw a name similar to his like on a book, like, and then I realized those are his fucking books. And I was like, dude, you write books? A natural progression into that. And then it's like, Brian's a great guy, so we're going to go ahead and spotlight him. But I think, what we want to provide people on this show is just sort of make sure that, we're in the right place, so to speak. Does that make sense? Are you guys?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you said, Aaron, you said about people somewhat not forcing their books on you, but I kind of think of, if you've ever been to a major city, and for me it's New York City, when you have people that are like not panhandlers, but like people trying to sell you shit on the street. How many times do you sit there and stop and say, you know what, I do want to buy that. That was missing from my life. Thank you so much, fucking Mr. Dirty Person, for trying to provide me with this knockoff whatever. It never happens. And it's the same way. Or at a carnival, when you're going by the booth and people are screaming at you to come buy this or play this game. How often do you stop and do that? So I think that's a great thing that you mentioned about being that forcefulness can be a deterrent to a lot of people. Yeah,
and you get intimidated by it. I don't want anybody forcing anything on me, and I already have a lot. I'm not saying I love reading books, and I'm open to everybody. But I have a lot going on right now, and my to-be-read pile is getting insane. So I agree with you. It's all about how you approach somebody. Even if somebody reads one of my books and they say, "Oh, I read your book. I love it." I don't go back and ask, "Did you leave a review?" I don't care. I mean, yeah, I want you to leave a review, but if you read my book and you loved it and you're taking the time to tell me that much, hey, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I've ever messaged somebody to ask if they've read my book or not or anything like that. I definitely give it. I don't think anyone that we've spotlighted at all has ever even reached out to us about spotlighting or anything. We've pretty much picked everybody from your own personal, and Daniel, Roland, you guys were the first ones that started off, I think, right? The first books that we chose, the first people that we spotlighted and stuff, and no one's like actually reached out to ask about it or ask if we'd read the book or anything like that. Like everybody that's done it had no idea we were going to do it. They're just people that we've seen in the community that are, busting their ass, and half the time they're not even promoting their own work that often. They're, just involved in the horror world and the writing world. So.
Yeah, and the point of this is that like you want to be approachable, but there's only so much time that we have to offer ourselves, right? I mean, if you look at being respectful of people's time is a big thing, like whenever you get a message that says, if you have time, I sort of laugh, you know what I mean? Because,
Yeah.
If you have time, could you read this, for me, check it out, give me some notes. And it's like, that's sort of the reason why we created this podcast, right? Like
Yes.
the concept that sprouted it when I reached out to Daniel initially, and then Roland, and then Carver came on. I want to tell a quick story because I think it'll be beneficial to people starting out, and it's a mistake that I felt like I made early on. I hadn't had any books released or written, but I had a bunch of stories that I was consolidating and getting ready to try the new candy. And I had met Adam Caesar. He's a great author. He's done like The Tribesman. And if you look now, he has that Clown in a Cornfield book. That fucking book's everywhere. It's
He just
I think
won
it got blurb.
he won the Bram Stoker for it.
yeah.
Or-
I think it got blurred by Clive Barker too. I think it's
He
got
did.
Clive Barker on the cover. Yeah.
I remember he said, I got my Clive Barker blurb, I can die now. And so basically, right, like I had met him at a convention some time ago. I had bought one of his books, really nice guy. And he had written a book with Shane McKenzie, who I was a huge fan of. So I was like, oh, well, let me try Adam's work because they've collaborated together. And he's just a cool dude. You know what I mean? And he put me onto his mailing list. And so like years later, I think this is like 5 years later or something, I just emailed him and I was like, Adam, would it be okay if I asked you to take a look at one of my stories and just sort of give me some feedback on it? And it's funny because thinking back on it, I'm like, what the fuck was I actually asking for? You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know exactly what I was asking for. Validation, maybe? I don't know. But in retrospect, at first I was like, well, I never got a response from him, which in my opinion, like sort of rightfully so, because if you look at where he is now, if he was responding to all, requests from random guy like me that really had no name established or anything like that, he was instead focused on putting out the best products he could. And I read interviews with him where he was like, do I want to go out and have a good time at this party, or do I want to finish up these last 2 chapters? Like he fucking sacrificed everything to reach that level that he's at now. And I'm so happy for him in that regard. And I realized that it was kind of a silly thing on my part to do it. And so I think looking back on that, the only thing I would do, like I try to respond to everybody no matter what, right? Like if they reach out to me and they ask for something, even if I can't do it, I'd say, I appreciate you reaching out, but we have this podcast now, and that's sort of the reason for it, right? Like this is, because when you look at it, guys, right? Like, I mean, if the listener or the potential author is thinking about it, you have your family, whatever personal problems you have going on, all of life's minutia, you got to find time to write, all these things, right? And it's like, we're dealing with that same stuff, plus we're putting out a podcast, which takes an incredible amount of time to do, right? Okay. And we just sort of have to draw the line in the sand somewhere and say, the podcast is here to help. It's a resource. The podcast is a resource, but we are not a resource, so to speak, right? Would you guys say that that's fair?
Yeah, kind of. I think that's pretty fair to say.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a fair statement, especially as we progress through our arc. I think by the time we finish up the arc that we've had mapped out, I think anybody that is aspiring or is already writing will have a really good a reference to go back on. And if they have questions later on, they can go back and check it out. And I've done it before with Aaron. We talked about this. Who was the Mike Thorne? That was his name.
Oh yeah. They had that podcast, right?
He had a self-publishing and a publishing podcast years ago, and I really liked it. And then it started going off the rails. But in the beginning, he really focused on a lot of publishing tips. And for me, being a newbie, this was many, many years ago. I would rewatch those episodes, and I'd write down notes, and I would say, okay, this is what he's talking about. And I'd go online and do some research on my own. I wasn't emailing him and asking him. I just kind of went back and rewatched the videos. So that's what this is here for, kind of that library of information for people that are aspiring.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, go ahead, Carver.
I was just going to say, when you were talking before about like when somebody asks you, do you have time? And you kind of laugh like we never have time. I've said before, I'm a really slow reader. So when people reach out to me and ask, hey, do you think you can take a look? It could be a 10,000 word document. And that cuts so much into my writing time and then this podcast time. And then I've got my YouTube thing going on. And I'm at the point where like I really can't. I do read for pleasure at night. A lot of times I'll read on my Kindle. Sometimes it's horror. Sometimes it's more like Brent Weeks and fantasy and stuff that I just really enjoy to kind of unplug from the writing world. And I just can't keep up. So more than likely I'm going to if you reach out to me and ask me, can you read this and give me your opinion? I'm probably going to say no in a very nice, hopefully roundabout way, because I just can't. Like, I just can't keep up. I won't be able to do it. So.
See, I'm not the opposite, but I'm a fairly fast reader. But I love helping people. I think that's the reason why we did the show, the reason why we interact with people and stuff like that. But I don't want to read something that's not finished. I don't want to read something that is, you're 2 chapters in and you're looking for edits. I'm not an editor. I'm a shitty editor. My grammar sucks. That's why I hire people smarter than me to do it. So, like, you don't want me trying to edit your stuff. When it's finished, if it's all done and produced properly, I might, if I have time and I put it on my TBR, like Roland said, I'm sure, everybody has stacks of books to read. Maybe at that point, I might take a look at it. If you're badgering me to kind of read it, it kind of puts a sour taste in my mouth. And there's a lot of other stuff out there that I can read from authors that may be a little more, maybe not as pushy with their work.
Yeah. And I read all the time. I read a lot. But I'm also too nice. So if you're asking me to give you my honest opinion on whether I didn't like your story or I did, I'm not going to tell you I didn't like your story. I'm going to tell you that right now. Like, if I don't like it, I may not finish reading. I don't know. But I have a really hard time with being like brutally honest. So I'm not the person you want to ask to like read your stuff to tell you if it's good or not and that kind of stuff. I just have a hard time with it. And that's one of the reasons why I don't usually ask. It's very rare. I don't think I can even think of a time that I've asked somebody to read my book unless it was like a beta reader or something like that. I don't ask people to read my stuff because I know I don't really do it in return. I read for pleasure. So I might have read your book, but you may have no idea that I have. So
yeah. Were you going to say something, Roland?
I said, and there's so many amazing authors out, and they're constantly coming out with new stuff all the time. So it gets overwhelming. The books keep coming, and it's a lot,
Yeah, and especially in the day and age now, we have, the 4 of us are all self-published for the most part, primarily we'll say self-published. And, Amazon and that self-publishing it's a blessing and a curse, I guess you'd say, because, when I know you guys have probably seen it when Kindle was in the infancy and self-publishing was just starting off, how much shit was out there that you had to kind of filter through. And that's why I think self-published authors had such a bad name for a long, long time. And I think nowadays we're starting to get more of that respect. You two, Aaron and Carver, are nominated in the Splatterpunk Awards for self-published books. That's huge. And you're in there with other much bigger names from bigger presses, and you guys self-published your own stuff. So it's great that it's out there. But I also think that, like Roland said, there's so much stuff coming out and there's so much content. And like Carver, you mentioned, like, I read for pleasure. I don't want to sit there and read, Atlas Shrugged and be like, all right, this is fucking horrendous. Like, I can't sit here and read this all day. I want to read something that I enjoy. Yeah. And if you're giving me something that is half finished and not edited, I'm not going to enjoy that, and I'm not going to read it. So, especially in a full-length novel. Go ahead, Aaron. What are you going to say?
I just think that, no, I completely agree with what you say. And like, that's why we're trying to do this, so that you don't, like if someone's thinking about just messaging someone and sending them their writing, that's just not the right way to go about getting it read. And you're gonna get a stigma on you by doing something like that could potentially tarnish your reputation. And I'm not saying, like, I just told you right now, I did something similar in my early, before I even had a book out. And looking back on it, now I see the error of my ways. But we want to sort of reiterate this so that you guys and anyone who's considering doing something like that, you should really think about it, because you're not going to get a whole lot out of it, even if, like you said, Carver, does it make sense for you to tell someone that their book sucked that's a reader of yours potentially? Like,
right.
Or just hurt their feelings in general? I think it just makes more sense. Like, what we want to stress is that be self-reliant, right? That's what this whole podcast is about. It's about showing you how to do it. Are there other questions you'll have? Probably, but what I just want to say, like, and sort of give you a quick overview of how I created Aaron Beauregard Horror, like my brand. And it's like, aside from that one question that I asked in that email, I didn't get any help back from it. I didn't get a response. Everything that I've done, I did it by educating myself, right? Using Google, using different writer resources, which is what we're sort of trying to put out on this podcast and make available for you, so that you're aware of them. But even if you're not aware of them, if you have that desire inside you that you're really going to do this and you're really going to be an author, you don't need the approval of any of us to feel better, or for whatever reason. I think I was getting it. I say feel better, and I'm not saying that anybody who's considering doing that's why. I guess that might have been why I tried to do it initially, though. That's why I say it. But does that, and you'll learn by doing over time, right? As you continue to release and as you continue to gain readers and approach people in the proper manner, that they will come to you, right? If you build it, they will come. And I'll say one more thing on this topic before you guys speak on it a little bit, is that, like, only recently, very recently, have I spoken with a very well-established author about and asked that person some questions. And that is because they commented on a post of mine and literally said, they saw that I was selling books, you know what I mean? And they were like, well, you should think about this and this. If you ever need anything, hit me up. You know what I mean? So it's like they opened up that door,
Yeah.
And even when that door's opened, I may have asked that person 2 questions.
Yeah.
I really thought about my questions, and I'm like, listen, this guy went out of his way to say, hey, Aaron, I'm going to help you out. Let me make the fucking questions the right ones, and not waste his time.
This is a respect thing. It's just respect, You understood at that point, he did open himself up to you. He did say that you can come to him. But also, he has a life. He has family. He has maybe kids, a job. He's trying to do writing himself. So it's just all about respect.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, like we talk about building a brand. And when I first kind of started getting real serious about writing, I kind of just sat back and watched. I interacted. I didn't just watch. I wasn't silent, we'll say, but I interacted a lot. I watched other people. I read other people's works. And when I first started really getting into wanting to publish stuff, months prior to that, I just started interacting with people and just asking questions here and there in a public forum so that it benefited everyone rather than privately messaging someone. Because I'm sure if I have the question, there are other people that have the question. And some people are afraid to ask that question. For me, the big one was formatting. And C. Commissar, she's another great indie horror author. She writes some really graphic shit out there. Check her out. I think she actually just dropped 7 new releases today. She actually really helped me. She's the one that put me on the Kindle Create, and she answered all the questions I had. But I wasn't overly pushy. I kind of put it out there in a public forum, and those questions helped other people. And like Roland said, it's a respect thing. You know, you can't just bombard people with stuff and think that you're the only one. You know, we all have lives outside of this writing. I wish that writing was my life, but it's not. It's not my full-time job.
Dude,
it's kind of a hobby.
Daniel, it would be different if we were like a Brian Keene or something, where, you know, the guy's a megastar and he has all these books and, you know, this phenomenal career and you know, it's just the time is really, it's honestly, it's not there. It's not like we're making like killer fucking money. Like we have to fucking struggle and eke our way to just fucking barely scrape by with this shit, you know?
Yeah, and I'll say this, I think I speak for all four of us on this, is that we are all grateful for every single sale, review, comment, everything we get. And I think that for us, between the four of us, one of the biggest brand building techniques and strategies that we use is we're receptive. We are appreciative. When somebody comments or they buy my book or they share something from it, I try to every single time at least just say thank you. That's it. You know, you don't have to go above and beyond. But just think about that in your own life. If somebody that you like jumps up and says thank you, that you did something for them, it makes you feel good. It makes you want to support that person. And it shows, you know, the level of appreciation. And I think the four of us have that. I think we have that pretty down. And I think we have a very loyal group of readers out there.
Yeah. And I would say
they're excellent.
I'm not saying don't reach out to your heroes and to your peers and stuff like that in the writing world. You know, like I've reached out to quite a few fairly big names. I'm not going to say their names because I don't want everybody else to reach out to them just because I said their name. But they did respond. I was surprised, and they were very nice. But, I mean, I was just telling them, hey, I really enjoy your work. I appreciate it. Like, I see you put out a lot of work or something like that. And I appreciate your work or something like that. Just something nice, you know?
Right.
And they've all responded back. But I wasn't saying, like, hey, can you read my book? And then messaging them next week, you know, hey, did you read my book? Hey, did you read my book? You know, like, I'm just checking again to see if you read my book. Like, there's a difference between showing appreciation to your peers and your, you know, heroes and stuff like that, and bombarding them, as you said, with, like, you know, requests to read your work over and over and over again and stuff. So
no, that's Carver. I just want to highlight what you said because that's a distinction I don't want to get lost in this. Is that in no way are we saying don't reach out to us. Especially people that, you know, are just wanting to say, hey man, you know, that book you wrote, it really made my day today. Like, it changed. That's the shit. You know, I will always love to respond to that, you know,
100%.
Or anything of that nature. But what we're saying is, if you're reaching out on a consistent basis, asking over and over to do a task that really, you know, that's work to a lot of people. Like, there's people in the free market, I mean, in like Fiverr, you know, like freelancers that actually that's they charge to do that kind of thing. And it's like, we're just trying to explain that between this podcast, writing, and everything else, like, this podcast is sort of the best way that we could give back without giving too much to where it's going to take away from us trying to further excel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. And if you and if you have questions and stuff that you want us to address on the show, of course, send them in, because we still don't get as many questions as I thought we would get. Sometimes we get a few here and there where people still aren't utilizing the written and read podcast at gmail.com to hit us with questions like they could. You know what I mean?
That's the proper channel, right? So just to sort of highlight that, written and read podcast at gmail.com is the proper channel. And then, you know, maybe if we get so many questions more, maybe we'll do a whole episode just dedicated to questions if it comes to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't wait to do a live strip poker episode, though. That's what I'm waiting for.
Yo.
So it's going to be fucking fire.
I don't know how to play poker, so I'm going to lose.
Oh, you definitely lose.
Hey,
just come naked,
I'm probably one of the only people left in the world that doesn't know how to play poker, I feel like.
Me and Aaron are going to be fully clothed.
Yo.
I'll just come into the screen nude.
There you go. No.
Y'all won, I quit.
The banana hammock on.
But are you going to put your balls in the soup? That's the question.
The pea
No, he puts
soup.
it in the pea.
The porridge. You're gonna put your penis in the porridge.
Yeah, whatever alliterations we have going on.
Well, speaking of questions, we have a couple more.
Are you gonna dip your taint in the tartar? Sorry.
God damn it, Carver.
Stop it.
Keep going. No, keep going.
Can you put your gooch in the what's something that starts with G?
Guacamole.
Gooch in the guac.
Garbanzo beans. The guacamole, I like that.
Aaron, what were you saying before you were so rudely interrupted by Carver?
You may continue.
He's getting sauced on fucking Bud Light seltzers that were shit he's drinking.
Two.
Exactly.
That's three. That's great.
Well, the first one was that screwdriver weird thing. I don't know what the hell that thing was. So that doesn't count. So two of these.
So I think we got just two more quick points to make before we move into questions and then end on reader recognition, right? But I think this is another important thing that we were talking about is, and it sounds silly, but don't expect anything, right? Like if you're doing something, like for example, let's just say Carver is really into Roland's work, right? And he shares his work all the time. He's like, oh man, these Carver Pike books, man, they're fucking dope. You know, you can't go into that. Roland can't go into that hoping that Carver's going to do the same. You know what I mean? And for a number of reasons. And it's like, we try to spotlight everything that we can on the show, but I just think like, you know, some of the expectations of, you know, I do this for you, you do that for me. It's just unreasonable. In some,
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to us, because we have a kind of a different dynamic. You know, we've talked about it before and stuff. We're all friends, first of all, but we also have kind of a working relationship, the four of us. Like, as soon as we started this, I made sure I'd already read Daniel's books. I read Roland's, and I'm still reading Aaron's now. So, like, that was, you know, priority for me was to read you guys' work. But my internet must have gone bad. I only see Daniel's pretty face.
Oh, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I thought I lost you guys or something. So.
No, Carver, that's a perfect thing, and it's yes, we have a different relationship, and with Aaron, with your book, with Son of the Slob, like I reached out to you because I am a fan of your work. I love the Slob, and it was kind of one of those things. Like I took a shot in the dark, and I'm like, hey, if you need somebody to read it for you, prior to anything else, I'd be happy to read it. And I read it in a fucking day and a half, because it was a great story. And Roland, I think the first things of yours, I think I did all audiobooks. I think you had a couple codes, and I messaged you, and I'm like, yeah, I'd love to have it. And again, I was so enamored by the writing and the narration, I flew through them. In Carver, we had swap books, and I read Foreign Evil within a day. You know, so for us, it's a little bit different dynamics. And for those people out there that are aspiring authors, or they're trying to look for people to share their work with, make friends with other people, make friends with some other peers, make a little group like we have, and get a small little beta reading group going on, and, you know, exchange reviews and exchange stories and ideas and whatnot, and build your own little kind of group there to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah. We may have talked about this earlier also. Like, once you start getting your work out there and start interacting with people, you know, via Facebook or Instagram, however, those readers that have read your book, they share with other people. So that's, you know, it benefits, and it's just another way for you not to have to go directly to somebody, because they're going to share your stuff with their friends, which helps you in the long run.
So I'll tell a quick little story. As everyone knows, my debut novella, Billy Silver, on the cover, the new cover that's been out for a while, has a blurb by Edward Lee. I don't know, well, I do know him now, but I did not know Edward Lee. I was just a huge fan of his. And I'll tell you how I got that blurb, which people are still like flabbergasted. So Dustin LaValle, who we covered on, I don't know if it was episode 5, the first one we started doing author highlights. I had won a couple of Dustin's books that he was doing a giveaway. And simply, I reached out to him when I got the books, and I let him know. I said, hey, man, thank you. I really appreciate this, and I'll be sure to read them and leave you a review. And from there, we just kind of kicked it off, and we just started bullshitting with each other, back and forth, talking. And I ended up sending him a copy of Billy Silver, because I'm like, hey man, I really like your books. If you have time, which we know nobody has time, but I was just kind of like, hey, I'm going to send you this copy. If you get around to it, great. If not, throw it up on your shelf. He read it and he liked it, and he knew that I liked Edward Lee, and that I, idolized this man. And Dustin came to me and said, hey, do you want me to see if he'll read your work? And I was like, no, I don't, because I don't want it to be him tell me it's shit and then I have to fucking stop writing for eternity. But a part of me was like, yeah, man, if you could, that'd be great. And Dustin took the time to go above and beyond and reach out to Edward Lee, who then went out and bought his own copy and reviewed it and sent me an amazing blurb. And since then, I've developed a relationship with both of them. And it's still surreal when I get emails from Edward Lee that it's fucking Edward Lee emailing me stuff. But I didn't pester them. I didn't reach out and say, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? I just simply told Dustin, thank you. I appreciate that you sent me this, that I won this. I'll be sure to read it as soon as I can and leave you a review. And from there, it grew into a really good friendship. I was talking to him earlier. So, just kind of that, like Aaron said, the organic relationships that you create with people that's key. And that kind of helped push my career along.
And what happens, Daniel, right? It turns into a cycle, right? Then we spotlighted Dustin on here. Why? Because he's going out of his way to try and help someone in an organic way, though, not in a forced way.
Yeah.
It'll happen. That's the thing. We live in the instant society, right? So everyone wants it right away. We want it right now. But unfortunately, with like building a brand and a persona in horror, in my opinion, I think it just kind of has to evolve on its own, and grow legs before you can start making it walk.
Yeah.
And I want to bring it back to what you said at the beginning of this part, Aaron, where you were talking about you can't do things because you expect people to do them in return. I mean, now imagine if it had gone some way different, right? And Daniel, he didn't read your book. You're adult enough, I think, and mature enough that you would have been, like you said, throw it on your shelf. He didn't get around to reading it, whatever, and been fine with that. But what Daniel probably wouldn't do is start messaging other authors and stuff and telling them, dude, this guy didn't read my shit. I supported him and he didn't support me. And you wouldn't believe this is a very small indie author world, first of all, not just indie horror. So indie horror is a tiny speck in the bigger part of the indie author game. I mean, we are a pretty tight-knit community, and I can't tell you, I would tell you at least probably 3 or 4 people I've heard back from other people that these people have reached out to them and told them, I share Carver's stuff all the time and he doesn't share mine. I read Carver's book and he didn't read mine and that kind of stuff. You can't do things expecting things in return. A lot of the times I don't even know that somebody's read my book, or, as Daniel said, we try really hard to, whenever we see somebody promote our work, to go in and comment and at least like the posts and stuff like that. I spend a lot of the day doing that. And then there are days like today where I literally didn't look at Facebook at all. I think at one point I spent about 5 minutes looking at Facebook, but for the most part, I sat and I wrote. I wrote about 5,000 words today, and I just sat in the chair, didn't move. And I have those days too where I just have to unplug because I haven't been getting work done. And on those days, I might miss that somebody shared my stuff. I try to go back, but there are days that we miss because, like you said, we have a life, Not only are we writing, but we also have jobs, some of us. We have families to take care of and things like that, significant others to be with. There's other stuff going on, we're not able to just sit all the time at the keyboard and stuff like that. And if you're doing things because you expect it in return, you're going to be disappointed because not everybody is able to pick up on that all the time.
The two things that you will but 2 things you should never expect in writing is lots of money and tons of good reviews, or every single review is being good. Some people are going to hate your work. Some people are not going to share your work. Some people are not going to reciprocate back, like Carver just said. They, just because you read something of someone else's doesn't mean you have to sit there and share it back. It doesn't work like that. And, we talked about this, off air, but, people think that, we have all this time in the world, and we don't. We're scrounging around just like everyone else trying to get our stories out there. So it's one of those things where we gotta bide our time.
And we're not that fucking established either, man. You know what I mean? Like,
No.
it's not like any of us are some fucking like massive stronghold. You know what I mean? Like, I appreciate every fucking person that shares my work, you know, like, you know, and enjoys reading it. And like, I'll always, like Carver said, you know, I'll always try and comment or leave something on everything that I can. But it's like, if anyone, and I don't think that this is the case probably for almost anyone, but if someone were to just share my stuff with the hopes that I would promote them, like, it's not, number one, it's probably not worth it to you, because it's like, I'm not that big of a deal anyway, dude. Like, I'm barely fucking surviving on this shit. And it's like, those intentions, it doesn't progress. It needs to be natural, you know? And it's like, we've stressed that kind of a little bit, that it just needs to be natural, and it needs to just happen, and things will fall into place. Like, and that's the thing. It's sort of like, what do they say? You know, like paying your dues, right? In most things, like, you know, in almost any profession, you know, you pay your dues and sort of build yourself up by your consistency in putting out product and trying to project the proper image, you know, and the right level of professionalism. And if you just do that, you just got to be a little patient, and those relationships will just fall into place. You know what I mean?
The one thing I will say is when I have had people that I wanted to read my work, I would ask them, I would offer them a free paperback. I wouldn't say, I'm going to send you a PDF, or can you go buy this? I would say, listen, I value you either as a blogger. I had one a blogger recently that just did a review on one of my books. I sent him a copy of that book in November. So it's been months, but I didn't harass him about it. I didn't say, hey, this, that, or the other thing. And since I've sent him the one copy, he's reached out and bought 3 more copies of other books for people.
Amazing. Yeah.
And, you know, there are other authors that I really idolize, I really liked, and I'd DM them or email them, and I'd say, hey, listen, I really enjoy your work. I would really like to send you a copy of my book. And some of them would be like, they wouldn't respond, or they would say, you know, I really don't have time to read it. And, you know, kind of take your time. When you get to it, you get to it. If you don't get to it, you don't. But for me, it was worth the gamble to kind of send them out there, and I appreciated them. So I was taking all the risk, and that was it. And I kind of just put myself out there to them. And some of them it paid off, and some of them I lost a couple bucks in postage. But it wasn't the end of the world.
Yeah.
Hey, while we were talking about this, Aaron, you mentioned like Fiverr to go and get reviews. Is there other avenues that either one of you guys know about that people or authors can utilize to go get reviews that you've heard of?
I would say look in like Facebook groups for sure. You know, I'm not aware of one specifically, but just go ahead and look at some of the groups, see what the rules are. You know what I mean? But I bet that there's a Facebook group for everything. I would assume that there's probably one there, you know, for beta readers too, just people who want to check different stuff out and they don't want to pay. They want to maybe see the next, if they can stumble on the next great author. I'm sure there's probably something like that.
Yeah, and a lot of people build ARC teams too. I mean, like I use BookFunnel is the website that I use. I think it's like $10 a month, and you can have 2 author names on it. And with BookFunnel, you can set it up to where you put your books in there, and then it gives you a link. And if you build like an ARC team, you can say, hey, all my ARC readers, I have a new book coming out. If you guys want to do it this round, you want to read and, you know, leave an honest review, then I'll send you a copy. The thing is, Amazon now, it's really, you know, cracking down on unpurchased, like unverified reviews and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And one thing I do want to say is you don't want to go out and pay people for reviews. You want to be real careful with that, because if you get busted with that shit, now I'm sure a lot of authors are doing it still, because there's authors that come out with a book and they have fucking 700 reviews and shit on a book that came out yesterday and shit, you know what I mean? But
Carver, if I can just, if I don't mean to cut you off, but I just want to clarify, because I don't want something I said to be misconstrued while you're on that topic. It's like when I was suggesting Fiverr in like the payment service, I was meaning it for not for a review, right? Or anything like that.
Book covers and formatting and stuff, right? That people ask you.
Just if someone wants to give you an honest critique of the work. You know what I mean? There are freelancers on there that'll do that. Like if you just want to check the contextual nature of the story, you know, and make sure it flows properly, if like that's something you're worried about, you could do it on there. But yeah, no way do I advocate for paying for reviews. You should never do that.
Yeah, no, that's not. I didn't even think you were, but there are sites. There's a lot of them out there, and they'll come into the group sometimes and pitch their shit. You know, their spammy shit, saying, you know, if you want 500 reviews by tomorrow, it's, you know, this amount of money and stuff. You don't. You get busted doing that shit, you're gonna go down. I mean, Amazon can rightfully yank your shit right off their site, so. And you don't want to be banned from the sites, so be careful with that.
And you say spammy shit, right? And speaking of spammy shit, like that goes back to aggressive messaging and sort of what I would like to end on, unless if somebody has other stuff to say at the end, that's fine too. But like, think about this, right? Like, would you guys ever send your book in a link of your book via messenger to someone, be it like someone you've never talked to, like a stranger?
No, and I hate that when people do that.
There's
a lot of times when people do that, I just unfriend them right away, because it's usually somebody I recently, you know, accepted as a friend, and then I get a message like that, and I just go unfriend them. So
yeah, it's almost as bad as getting the Illuminati posts, right?
Yeah,
or the cryptocurrency. It's,
or Publishers Clearinghouse.
It's like. You know, like I've got it from people. It's like I don't even know who this person is. You know what I mean? And suddenly they've just sent me a link, and it's just like there's, in my opinion, just looking at it as just from a regular dude, not even an author, right? Outside of posting up political opinions or internally or like intentionally stirring up controversy via your posts, I think that there's no better way to lose a potential reader than just sending someone a link of your book and saying, check it out.
No one's going to check it out anyways. Like your time you're wasting on that is like...
Yeah, that's the thing. When we start getting into when your book is finished and you start working cover art and blurbs and finding people to help promote your book, that's when people are going to want to look into it, and that's when they're going to want to read it, is when you have an enticing cover and you have an enticing blurb on the back of it. You know, that's when people are going to bite. Not if you just send them a fucking random link. It could be viruses or spamware or whatever.
But even if the book is finished, I see no purpose in just randomly messaging someone a link and saying, check out my book. And I've never spoken a word to you. You know what I mean? And
I would expect the other person.
I'll tell you why I know it doesn't work. Sorry, Roland, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I would expect the other person on the side of that link, if I did do something like that, to be like, who the fuck does he think he is?
Right.
I'll tell you why I know it doesn't work, because at one point I published books under my real name. They're no longer published under my real name. And I was sending them to my friends, like people that I knew in fucking high school and stuff. I mean, people that I had talked to. You know what I mean? I thought a good marketing campaign would be to send them each my link. I mean, I went through all fucking like 500 people and said like, hey, what's going on? You know, like it was a copy paste message, but you know, they didn't know that. But it was basically saying, you know, like, hey, I finally wrote a book. I know I talked a lot about it in high school or some shit like that. Here's the link. And I sold like 2 fucking copies of my book when I sent it to like 500 fucking people. Wow. And I haven't been on my personal profile since. Fuck those people, man.
Desperate Carver.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, man, read
Fuck
this
you,
fucking book.
I'll make some new friends, some real friends.
I got these cheeseburgers, man.
Where they come from?
Oh, man.
You're horrible, Carver.
I'm telling you.
No, but that's a great example, Carver, because it goes to show, all right, everyone on this podcast that's hosting in some way or another has, you know, had a little misstep or something. And it's like, that's the point of this, right? We're saying this stuff.
These are my friends.
I suck your dick. But you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying, though, right? Like, everyone screws up. But there's a difference between saying, oh, that was a stupid thing to do, I'm never going to do it again, like I did after I realized what I did with Adam. I was just like, what was the point of that? And like really reflecting on it. And I was like, you know, and then the difference, or going and continuing to repeat the same cycle, like Carver did with all those 500 friends,
You should have learned after that first 100.
Well, the one thing I will say is for us, we talked about it earlier that, Carver said indie horror is a very, very small, tight-knit community, and we all kind of talk. And I'm not gonna throw any names out there, but there was somebody today that I was private messaged by that told me that an author that already had signed a contract and accepted payment had pulled the story out of an anthology. Just was like, oh, I found a better offer, like I'm out of here. And you can really fuck your brand up, your name up. I mean, how many people have we seen go down with stupid Facebook posts, let alone bad business practices like that, where you're just pulling the story out after you signed the contract and accepted payment, and then was arguing about returning the payment. Like you can really submarine your career by stupid shit like that. And brand building and being a decent human being is important in this genre. And we all talk. I mean, everybody knows. So it's a small community, like Carver said. So if you're out there doing stuff like this, people are going to find out.
Yeah.
Have another seltzer, Carver.
But guys, right? So that's pretty much what we've got for Etiquette and Desire. So long story short, right, guys? Just approach the right way. Use the resources that are there to you. Your desire should be your primary resource, right? Not any other individual or human, and as you build that brand, the chips will fall into place, and you'll be good. Nothing to worry about. It does take patience, though, and it does take paying your dues. I've never personally heard of an overnight indie horror sensation.
Yeah. It's very rare, in horror especially. There was one in fantasy that I knew of, but I don't think it was an overnight one. And he had published some books, and then he fucking blew up, and he got bought out by Orbit. Rye Chronicles. I don't know if heard of them, Carver. But the guy who wrote those, it was insane. But other than that, indie horror,
I mean, I could be wrong. But I'm just saying, if it does happen, it's probably less than 1%, right? So,
yeah.
But all right, so that's what we got this week. So be sure to check out Diving Into a Pool of Blood when we're jumping into the actual writing process. We have a two episode spread that's going to be released over the course of the month, right? Because we're bi-weekly. That's next on tap. And then I think we're going to be diving into editing after that. So there's a lot of good, real good, useful stuff for people that are writing and wrapping up their manuscripts. That's going to be coming up in the next few episodes. But do we have, Carver, do we got time maybe? Yeah, we got time. We could do a couple of those questions real quick and then finish up with the reader recognition.
So we've got a couple of mailbag questions, and instead of going straight to the mailbag this time, we try our best to answer the emails that come in all the time, and we've done a pretty good job of it, but we have missed a couple, and I know one of these questions has come in a couple of times, and since we did miss these for a while, we wanted to just go ahead and go straight to these two questions and answer them, and show respect for those readers that took the time to message us and we didn't get back to them. So the first one is from Donna. She says, I have another question for you all. How do you handle discussing the content of your books with friends, family, coworkers, etc.? Are there some people that you simply just say, I write horror books and leave it at that? I write what I like to call, or she's saying, I write what I like to call smutty/dark poetry, and when I was published in an anthology, I was hesitant to tell most people because I didn't want to get judged. Do you feel that way as well with what you write about? Thanks. Appreciate all the hard work you all put into not only the podcast, but also into your books. So
I think Roland should start us on this one here, because I can see Roland chomping.
Because we talked about it just recently.
We want more Roland, Karina.
More Roland, Karina.
She wants more Roland?
No, I think we talked about it in one of the episodes. I do have issues chatting with my family about it because I worry that my family will judge me for it. I don't give a fuck about what the friends say. They already know I'm crazy. But I think with the content that I do write, I worry that my family is going to read it and be like, okay, we didn't raise him right. So yeah, I do worry about being judged from my family. But then I still do it because I'm like, fuck it, I want to write my book, and I'm not going to not write it just because I'm worried about my daddy or my sister. I'll put him in the hole.
What about work though, Roland?
Yes, that's another thing. So I do a lot of my writing at work, and so I have it up.
Stop saying that. Your boss is going to hear you.
Yeah, at some point they're gonna catch on.
Fucking fire me, bitches.
I'm gonna get fucked.
So yes, I write at work, and the girls are constantly. I swear, I got 38 wives at work. I work with 38 women, and I got 38 wives. Always coming up over my shoulder, like, "What are you writing? Get off me, man!" So yeah, and it's usually at a part where, oh, he shit on somebody's dick or pissed in his ass, some weird shit. I'm like, dude, stop, get away. So yeah, I worry.
That's awesome, Roland. So I'll say that when I was at work, I was working, until relatively recently at a bank, and so I was just like, yo, I'm not telling nobody. Like only like a couple people that I really trusted knew, even that I was doing it, just because I don't know, I just didn't know what could come of it. You know what I mean? And like I don't know, I just thought it would serve me best to remain quiet in the workplace. As far as family goes, though, I don't care. My family's kind of crazy, so
You didn't even show your face really until this podcast much, right? I know you seem to have a mask on in most things you did.
I was trying to conceal my identity because of that for a while. Yeah. But I also just like the mask thing. I think it's fun. It's like a showmanship thing. People see it and they're like, "Oh, what the fuck is this weird shit?" I think it can help, with engagement. Yeah. So that was twofold. And then as far as friends, my friends are all fucking scumbags. So that tells you.
I've listened to Evil Examined, so I've heard some of them. Shout out JP. JP's the man. For me, it was. First of all, I want to read some of Donna's fucking dark erotic poetry. That's step one. Donna, please email some of them to us, or you can DM me directly.
Let us read them over the air. Yeah.
Why don't you purchase it, you cheap prick?
Awesome.
If they're out there, I'll fucking buy them immediately. No, my family, I've always written horror stories when I was a kid, and some of the stuff I wrote in high school that if I wrote now in high school, I'd probably fucking get expelled. So my parents, they know there's no ifs, ands, or buts of the shit that I write. My mother will ask me if she can read it. She's like, "Oh, is this a book that I'll be able to tolerate?" And I say, "No, don't read this one." Pretty much don't read any of them. But the one I have coming out in November, I told her I'm going to actually dedicate it to her. That one she can read. And but my father reads all of them because he's just as much of a fucking savage as I am. So
you're such a fucking sweetheart.
I am. But as for my friends for work and stuff, they're worse than I am, so they don't care. They love it. My bosses don't care. They've all read it. They know what it's about, and it hasn't really, hopefully, knock on wood, hasn't affected me yet. So we'll see what happens. But
what about you, Kava?
Kava Pag.
For a while, when I lived in Panama, because I was a high school teacher, I wouldn't tell most people what I was writing. I actually kept a couple of those books under my real name for that reason, because I like to mention that I was an author, especially since I was teaching literature and stuff like that. So that way, if the kids went to look for it, they would find the ones under my real name. And like one of the students, their dad bought the book and stuff, but those weren't that bad. They were like very violent, a lot of action and stuff, and not as sick as the shit I write, now. And then here, like I gave my mom a whole set of my erotica stuff, so she knows what I write. I don't think she reads it. She just wanted to have them on her shelf, to say it's my son. She gave her boss one of the books. I know she read it. And then here in West Virginia, since I moved here, I try to be kind of quiet about it because it's kind of like the Bible Belt, you know what I mean? Everybody here is really religious, and I worry that they're going to judge the whole family and stuff on the things that I write. But then again, I interact on Jules's profile, and hers is, she has people she works with and things on there. So, I mean, people know my pen name, so I'm not.
You're fucked, man.
At this point, I'm
you're
not
out.
that worried about it anymore. Huh?
Who cares? Just fucking do it live.
Right.
At this point, I really don't care anymore. Like, I was very secretive about it and stuff, but I don't give a shit anymore, really. So.
Yeah, Aaron, you had that good thing go with the masks for a while. I think the first time I saw your face was on A Quiet Place with Regina, and even then you were like in the shadows, like fucking Batman.
Yeah. I thought you were gonna say Pornhub, but
No, God, no, I would have clicked off that one immediately. A wilting erection at that point.
Ready for
circumcised
the second
though.
question?
Circumcised.
Right.
Yeah.
This question is from Kirsty E. I'm not going to say the full last name out of respect for her, but Kirsty E. said, "Hey guys, I posted a question on your latest bid, but was directed to your email, so here goes. When writing, have you ever written something so gross or disturbing that you grossed yourself out? Like a full-on what the fuck is wrong with me moment? If so, what? Really enjoying the podcast and your gruesome stories. Much love, Kirsty."
Short answer, no. I've written some fucked up shit, and I did trim one scene from Talia. That wasn't that because it fucked me up. I thought that had potential to fuck other people up, and I didn't feel like it pushed the story forward. So for the sake of storytelling and the sake of some other people that I knew personally, I decided to trim it down. But for the most part, I've written some really fucking heinous stuff, and I'm never bothered by it because we've talked about this. It's fiction. These are paper characters, and it really doesn't bother me what happens to them.
Yeah. Aaron?
Yeah, for the most part, I'm pretty much the same as Daniel. Nothing that ever really fucks me up. I think I talked about it on the show before, though. There is one story that I have that involves a depraved, well, they're all pedophiles are depraved, but this one's particularly fucking nasty. And, that's not a topic that I like to think about on any level, so that does gross me out. And that's probably... I mean, killing kids, killing animals, none of that shit bothers me. That's all just fictional stuff. But when you're getting into the mind of a sexual predator on like children, that's just some other weird shit. And it's like it's not a space that I enjoy visiting, but it was necessary for the story. And that story is actually like loosely inspired by a sort of real event that transpired that I heard about, and I was like, man, this is fucking tough to listen to, but I sort of challenged myself and was like, that was the point of Dark Assembly, was to go down very dark paths, and to this day I still get reviews and people say the last story is the best. So
I need to pick up that one.
That was my
Roland?
Oh, you want me to go? Nope, I haven't. I'm still trying to though. I want to. I want to write something so bad, and I'll be like, God, why the fuck did I write that? What's wrong with me?
Roland had an aborted,
Working on
fucking
it.
semi-aborted fetus roaming the streets. Like, that's pretty fucked up, but...
That is pretty fucked up. But it didn't gross me out. It creeped me out a little bit because I think anything that's small and tiny, it can get under the bed and fuck you up, creeps me the fuck out. Like the doll from Chile Terra.
oh man, that's
so
nightmarish.
Roland,
Yeah.
I will say, though, I still fucking love your cover for Abortion, because when you look and you see the baby and the little tiny cute delicious baby, and then you see the other one hanging out of the carriage, it's awesome. Really good cover.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Carver, Mind Carver, you have anything?
Nothing that's grossed me out, but I've definitely had a few things that made me think, like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Like, there's a scene I just wrote in The Maddening that the book's not even done, so I feel like I'm giving stuff away by explaining it, but what the fuck? So So to anybody listening so this is from The Maddening. It's something I wrote recently, but there's this guy he's at a party, and it's like a big orgy kind of party. Gay, straight, everybody's just fucking around, going all kinds of stuff going on in this party, right? And he's just having a great time. And he goes up, he notices that on the back wall there's this hole in the wall that's got hair around it. So he thinks it's kind of strange, and he eventually makes his way up to the DJ, and he's all high and drunk and shit, and he goes up to the DJ, and the scene's going to make no sense until you've read the book, but he goes up to the DJ, and the DJ's like, come here, let me show you something, and he takes him over to the hole in the wall and spreads the lips, and he shows him the clit in the wall, and he's like, here, it's the great mother, you have to rub the clit, and he gets the guy to start rubbing the clit. And basically, she just orgasms all over the whole crowd, this hole in the wall. And there's just cum spurting out all over the whole fucking crowd.
Roland's at the fan himself, so hold on.
That's awesome, Carver. That's
I'm not going to go too much more into it, but it's pretty. There's more to it. It's pretty sick. And then the scene after is just really sick, too, with another character.
You need everybody to get covered with China juice?
This book is definitely crazier than any of the other books in the series. So this one's just got so much shit going on. I'm at almost 80,000 words. So it's bigger than the rest of the books in the series, and it's almost done. So
yeah, I will say, like, grossed out is one thing. Like, that's the only story that grossed me out. But disturbed me, like, there's stuff that I've written like that. I know that's a different question. But, like, for example, what I wrote with Son of the Slob and some of the stuff in there, like, that stuff is disturbing to me mentally, like, more so than anything else that I've written, I think.
That's awesome.
Do you guys ever feel that way, like, with stuff that you wrote? Like, just like that, to you, it, like, fucks with you because there's some different parts of you in the book and stuff?
I had a lot of the stuff, if any of you guys have read Slaughterbox, a lot of that, there's the main guy, Kong, is at a date at the movie theater, and they're about to watch this movie where a bunch of crazy shit happens, but the previews in the movie all allude back to, they're kind of like flashbacks to his childhood, and he doesn't know how they're on film, but like each preview for a movie that doesn't really exist is like different scenes from his childhood, and most of that, it's not completely, like I embellished a little bit, but most of that is stuff from my childhood, so...
Wow.
So yeah, that book kind of took me there a little bit.
Shit's fucked up, man. It's like,
yeah, Aaron, I'll say, because I don't know when this is coming out or when Son of the Slob's coming out, but I'm probably one of the few people that has actually read it, and the emotional connection you have with that in that book with the characters and the depth they go. Some of the stuff is really out there, but the way you pull it together definitely shows an emotional tie to those characters. And just talking personally with you one-on-one, I can see parts of you in it and parts of your personal life, and I can definitely tell that you have, you hit a nerve with some of that stuff, and I think people are gonna fucking shit when they read that book. So,
awesome.
for all you people that didn't get to read it yet, you're gonna fucking love it. And that cover's sick too, by the way.
I know. I was just about to mention that. You have the damn baby sitting in a sugar chair. Like, really?
Roland's like, come on with that shit.
I just look at the chair. I'm like, look at all that shit coming out.
But the detail in both of those covers, man.
So
like
good.
Somebody, Chris Jones, right, posted them side by side. Was that Chris that did that today?
Yeah.
Had them side by side, and I was just looking at the detail, like just the random shit, like chicken bones on the floor and just like fucking.
The Barbie doll with no head.
I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's nothing in those in the Son of the Slob that's random. Everything is
I was going to ask
calculated in some of the imagery that's in there. So I won't tell you what's what, but...
So was it the same with the Slob? Because I still haven't read the Slob. I'm making my way through Yellow, but I haven't read the Slob.
It is. Yeah. It is the same. And we'll get into this too on like the episode when we talk about art and covers. Yeah, but that is a reason why I always pay my artists more than they ask for. Yeah. And like with that book in particular, I said, listen, I need you to understand this. Like that this book could probably make or break me. In all reality, it probably won't break me. I'll still keep doing it. But I wanted him to understand the urgency behind it. And I said, I'm paying you a lot more because I need you to make the best fucking cover you ever fucking made. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and so I think that'll be cool when we get to that episode and talk about that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes you need to approach somebody like that and say, listen, dude, I'm fucking really serious about this shit. Like, this is a big deal for me. And, like, I believe in you.
Yeah.
And you can fucking light a fire under their ass. But you're also compensating them properly for that fire that you lit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then everybody's a winner. It's a good relationship. He knows he's got to bring the fucking goods to the table. That it can't be shit.
did.
No pun intended.
He definitely did.
Hey,
Lots of
Aaron,
pieces.
even or Daniel, you said everything has a meaning. Even the 3 little mice on the television playing in the background.
God damn it, Roland! I can't spoil anything for you.
I didn't spoil anything. Everybody saw the mice on the TV.
I can't tell you what that means.
Okay.
I can't tell you.
I
the
didn't see the
fucking-
mice on the TV rolling. Damn it.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
because
pay attention,
Carver wasn't
Carver.
on Facebook all day. I can't spoil things for you.
Those
Buy a
were-
copy. Stop being fucking cheap and trying to get spoilers.
I'm gonna get it. I'm excited.
It may be
Buy
a,
the book when it comes out. It's fucking phenomenal. You're gonna probably shit just like on the cover, and you're gonna fucking love it. I guarantee. I'm like Men's
I thought you were
Warehouse,
gonna say
I
and you're gonna
guarantee
eat it. Like
No, 'cause that gives away spoilers.
You're gonna put your balls in some peas.
Yeah,
Are
you're
we
put some
talking about
balls in
2
a
girls
bowl of
and 1
shit.
cup now? Yeah, come on.
Yeah, what about 1 guy, 1 jar? We'll go over that.
4
You
guys,
saw that?
1 hot dog.
Exactly. 1 circumcised hot dog.
Goodness.
All right.
All right, you want to do a
reader
reader
recognition?
All right.
What a perfect time.
Yeah, he'll probably love to segue into this. So, I'm gonna do the reader recognition for
Because
today.
he's depraved, right, Daniel? He's depraved.
He is. He is depraved Dakota. That is who we're talking about. Dakota Daw. He is an awesome fucking reader. He always interacts. I think he's a big part of Drew Stepik's people on Godless. He's just always out there promoting everybody's books. He read my book Talia pretty much. I think he read it in a day. Actually, I'm looking at the review he posted on Amazon, and at the time he said that was his contender for the best book of 2021. And the dude is always out there. Thank you, Dakota. I really appreciate you, man. You do some great work for the indie horror scene. You're always out there reading. You're always out there reviewing. You're promoting all of our work, and I appreciate you. And what about you guys? You guys have? I'm sure he's probably read some of your stuff as well, right?
Dude, he reached out to me and he bought every single one of my books. You know, and magnets, all this shit, dude. Like, he's just like, man, I'm fucking all in. You can tell he just loves horror. And if you write in the right kind of horror, he's gonna fucking push it and just recognize it. And it's not. He just loves that shit, dude. You know.
Yeah,
and
he's
I
really
think
active on Instagram too, not just Facebook. And
he approached
Super
me.
active.
He approached me too about Nightmare Nirvana, and we're working together to. He said, "Hey, I want to help you promote that book. Like, if you're down to like allow me to help you promote it." I was like, "Man, of course, dude. Like, I appreciate you even considering that." And he's like, "Yeah, you know, like I want to buy like 3 copies of it and do a raffle on my Instagram, like." You know, and he's like, "Oh, I want to pay full price." I'm like, "Nah, man, like I'm gonna fucking try to help," you know, like,
Yeah.
but he's like, "No, I want to do that," you know, like he's like very adamant about it, and that's just for somebody to do that and be like, "Yeah, I want to buy 3 copies, I want to fucking promote it because like I saw it, I'm hyped about it, I'm fucking into it." I mean, what more can you ask for? That the kid's
That's
awesome,
great.
dude.
Nice.
Yeah, that's what I have. Carver, do you have any interactions with him or no?
Yeah, like I was saying on Instagram for sure. He's very active on Instagram and sharing stuff and liking all the posts and things like that. So
Yeah, if anybody doesn't know, I think on Instagram he is Depraved Dakota, and he's got a pretty good page going. And yep, Depraved Dakota, and he's just a fucking cool dude. He's always supporting indie horror, sharing, reading. So check out his posts on Instagram. He's on Facebook as well. And thank you very much, man, Dakota. Thank you for what you do for the indie horror scene.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dakota. Appreciate it, dude. All right, guys. So that wraps up our episode. We want to thank you guys again, as always, for tuning in about the Etiquette and Desire this week. Next week, we'll be diving into
next
the first
episode.
Oh, yeah, next episode. Thank you.
You're
next
welcome,
episode, we're going to fucking do that till this show's in the grave. I swear to God.
Yeah.
But we'll be diving into a pool of blood where we get our hands wet and we start painting with blood to make these pages come alive. And that's a two-parter because there's a lot of content as far as a discussion of, the writing process in general. There's plenty to talk about there. Plenty of meat on that boner. So until next time, we want to thank you guys again.
Where can we find your work, Aaron? Where can we find
Aaron, what the fuck?
Fuck! All right. You can find my work at Amazon, but I recommend if you guys want signed paperbacks, reach out to me. Happy to do that. I got different kinds of merchandise too. I got some real special stuff coming up for Son of the Slob too, which I'm hoping to have, I don't know, probably available within the next couple months from when you guys are seeing this episode. So hit me up. I'm on all social media platforms.
Carver, go ahead. Play us out.
You can find me on all social media under Carver Pike.
Oh, shit.
And my books are all wide, so you can find me everywhere pretty much now on Carver Pike, on Godless as well. As Aaron said, hit me up at carverpike@gmail.com if you want a signed paperback. I think I have at least a couple copies of all my books right now, so which is rare. I don't usually have a lot of my books around, so hit me up.
They're flying off the shelves. That's why. That shit's flying. Get it while it's hot.
Right. Been flying.
Rolling.
You can find me on my website, RolandBerseyJr.com. I think I had about 3 visitors since it's been up.
Hell yeah, son. That was all
Plenty of room.
And I'm on Amazon under Roland Bersey Jr., on Godless, Facebook. Karina found my OnlyFans page and posted it on Facebook. I don't know if you But yeah, hit me up on Facebook.
Wait, you have an OnlyFans page? Isn't that for like naked people? You get naked?
It's all fans.
Yo, he stays naked. Where the fuck you been?
But
that's where you get to see Roland dipping his balls in peas on his OnlyFans page.
Well, let me ask you guys this: what if I had told you that I've never worn pants this entire podcast?
Stand up and
who has? Let us see that gray bush.
Live podcast, or it didn't happen.
Adam and Evil.
And Daniel, where can we find you?
Daniel, in the fucking bowels of hell where this show belongs. Daniel Volpe on Facebook, DJ Volpe Horror on Instagram, and unfortunately Twitter. And if you want signed paperbacks, you can DM me on any of those platforms. I have plenty. I just ordered a bunch more, so I should be good. And my newest book is coming out soon, so I ordered 50 copies of them. So by the time this comes out, I might have some copies of A Gift of Death, my new vampire novella. So if you want some fucking bloodsuckers, and there's some cocksuckers on there as well, feel free to hit me up. Yeah.
Any bloody cocksuckers?
You'll have to buy a copy and find out, Roland. You're in for spoilers tonight.
Roland's like, oh dear. All right. Well, we run a little bit over, but that's okay because more content is always good. And remember, it's going to be written in red. Is it the Written in Red podcast at gmail.com?
I think it's just Written in Red.
It's just Written in Red.
Fuck. So it's Written in Red podcast at gmail.com to send us your questions. Remember to follow us, on the Facebook discussion forum that Chris Jones was kind enough to construct. That's another great place where we were talking about a lot of stuff from the episode that you can do there. And then please subscribe to the YouTube channel, and if you could hit the alert bell, that always helps us out. But until next time, keep it 100% horror.